All right, I've got a couple big announcements for you guys. Number one, PFF's player prop tool is now available on the web for all PFF Plus subscribers. And number two, PFF Plus is 40% off right now. If you use the promo code BLACKFRIDAY, you get all of the same data, grades, and analytics that all 32 NFL teams use, all 136 FBS teams use. As well, you get access to our 2026 NFL mock draft simulator, that world-class player prop tool that can help you nail all of your bets, and of course, the best fantasy football tools on the planet as well. Again, 40% off PFF Plus right now when you use the promo code BLACKFRIDAY. All right, next game that we've got in our review is number 16 Texas beating number 3 Texas A&M on Black Friday, 27-17, and making a pretty interesting conversation now for a 9-3 Texas to potentially be the first 3-loss team to make it as an at-large team in the college football playoffs. Let's go over the highest grade players, starting off with the Texas Longhorns. Highest grade player, linebacker Leona Lafau, 86.9. Cornerback Kobe Black, 81.9. Edge rusher Ethan Burke, 76.1. Tight end Jack Endries, 75.4. Offensive tackle Trevor Gooseby, 72.4. And Arch Manning with a 70.6 grade in the win. Let's go over to Texas A&M with their highest grade players in the loss. Tyreek Chappelle, the corner, 73.9. Linebacker Torian York, 73.3. Defensive tackle Tyler Onyedim, 72.7. Ruben Fothery II, 72.3. The offensive tackle. Tight end Theo Mellon Orstrom, 71.2. And Marcel Reed with only a 55.1 grade in the loss. Dalton, what told the story in this game?
This game offensively for Texas was a microcosm of their season. First half, struggling to play physical, struggling to run the ball, only 3.1 yards per play, 57.9 PFF grade on offense as a team, and you just felt like they couldn't get the engine running. Their defense was playing darn good enough to win this game. They went into halftime down 10-3, and it was just a struggle, and it was kind of like we were asking the first half of the season, what is Texas going to do to get this offense running more consistently? Well, they came out, they got Trey Wisner out in space, they were running to the outside, they were using a lot of motion to their advantage. I thought Texas A&M really struggled on defense to react to motion and everything Steve Sarkisian was throwing at them pre-snap. 9.5 yards per play, Max, in the second half of this game. It's because they got the run game rolling. This offense this year, look, in years past, they've had great running backs, great offensive lines. They get downhill on you in the run game, and then they use play action to beat you over the top. This is a team that gets east and west, whether that's getting outside with the run game, the screen game, getting the ball out quickly to the perimeter, and then after that, they respond by taking deep shots down the middle of the field. But for the most part, it's an east and west offense. That's what they figured out the second half of the season. They figured it out in this game that they could beat Texas A&M on the perimeter, and it's really, to me, exactly how Texas has gotten better in the second half of the year, finally accepting that, look, we don't have an elite offensive line this year. We're not going to run between the tackles at an elite clip against teams like this. We got to figure out how to get our athletes out in space, how to use Arch Manning's legs occasionally in the run game, as you saw with the big touchdown in the fourth quarter. So I think it really is, to me, Texas throughout the season. The second half of this season has found their identity, and in the first half they were searching for it, and in the second half of this game they found their identity once again. This is how they've been winning ball games lately on offense.
Yeah, my stat is Marcel Reed had a 49.7 passing grade from a clean pocket in this game. Usually that's kind of the passing grade you see when you're under pressure. From a clean pocket, you usually want to be somewhere in the 80s. He was at 49.7 in this one. And listen, Dalton, I took a lot of heat. We both took a lot of heat when we picked Texas to win this game. And I took a lot of heat when I said Texas had the better quarterback in this game. This is why I said that. Marcel Reed, his underlying metrics have been a huge problem for Texas A&M this year. His decision-making and his accuracy have been issues all year. They've really just been masked by the fact that Texas A&M had an outstanding supporting cast at wide receiver, at offensive line, and also in the defense. Right now, Marcel Reed is 117th in America in uncatchable pass rate this year. Over 25% of his passes have been charted as uncatchable this year. That is directly in front of guys like John Mateer and Lenora Sellers. Marcel Reed, 17 big-time throws, 18 turnover-worthy plays now on this season. He has more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws. One of his bad interceptions late in the game was from a clean pocket as well. Don't get me wrong. Arch Manning was not phenomenal in this game, right? He was very okay overall, pretty solid, I would say, on the day for Arch Manning. But he was better than Marcel Reed, which is why Texas ultimately won this game. And listen, I don't want to sound like a hater for Marcel Reed. He's a very, very talented player, especially as a runner right now. But I still think there's a lot of work to be done for him as a passer. And he's still a very young player, too, who probably will come back to Texas A&M next year and develop even further, maybe become the Heisman candidate that so many people think he was this year. I never personally bought into that Heisman hype for Marcel Reed, but I will not deny he's got the talent to eventually become a candidate for the Heisman Trophy. But right now, this current form of Marcel Reed is an average passer at best who's been boosted up by supporting cast and a very inconsistent quarterback overall. And the South Carolina game illustrated that with a horrendous first half. And then I will admit an incredible second half from Marcel Reed to lead the comeback in that game. He's been very inconsistent this year for A&M. He has 4 games this year with a 70 or higher PFF grade. 4 games below a 60 as well. So 4 games where he's been good and 4 games where he's really struggled. So I think Marcel Reed overall has been an inconsistent quarterback for A&M right now, and I think he has flashes of greatness, but they're few and far between right now. I think if Texas A&M does not win the national title or what have you, one of the biggest reasons why might be Marcel Reed, and of course the run defense, which has struggled this year as well, but Marcel Reed, Dalton, I just think right now is an average passer at best.
And you mentioned those 4 games. Here are those 4 games, okay, and ranks in coverage grade for each of those 4 teams. South Carolina's 95th, Auburn's 115th, UTSA's 116th, Arkansas's 127th. These are 4 teams who have been giving up yards through the air all year. I'm with you. I would be worried about Reed's ability to beat one of these elite defenses, right? And we'll see where they get ranked. I would assume they're going to play a home game. They will still be top 8, but unlikely to get a bye week, especially with, outside of the Notre Dame win, really a lack of high-quality wins here. So they could be looking at being, I would say, probably number 6 or 7, I think is entirely possible here, because Texas in the second half really dominated this game. They will have a shot to win at home. They're still very good, but they need Reed to play better than he's played for most of these SEC games that they've played.
Yeah, again, talented player, very talented player, but there's still a lot to work on with Marcel Reed right now. Dalton, who impressed you the most, though, from this game?
Look, this Texas linebacking core, without Anthony Hill the last couple of weeks, has really made some nice adjustments. You saw Leona Lafau was Texas' highest-graded player in this game. How about an 85.7 run defense grade, 11 tackles, 2 stops, really taking over as the leader in the middle of this defense. And then the last couple of weeks, I want to give a lot of credit to Trey Moore, who we've seen play mostly off the edge this year. Remember when there was like some experiment about him playing linebacker, and he was kind of doing it part-time and stepping back? Well, the last 2 games, he's had to start in place of Anthony Hill at linebacker. Coverage has been a little bit of a struggle. He's not really a natural with that, as obviously a defensive end for the majority of his career, but been really good, been really instinctual in run defense, a 79.4 run defense grade in this game. So those 2 guys, Ty Anthony Smith also helping out a little bit in there, especially in coverage. So I just want to credit this linebacking core in general. Altogether, those 3 guys, 73.9 PFF grade in this game without Anthony Hill, your best player, potential first-round pick at that spot, right? So I think really the middle of that Texas defense stepped up in this game, especially in run defense with how good Moore and Lafau were up front.
Yeah, I want to go back to your stat. I'm going to go to Trey Wasserman, my most impressive in this game. Took advantage of what's been kind of a vulnerable A&M run defense this year, especially on the edges. A&M in the middle of the defense is really, really good with those linebackers and the D tackles and all that, but on the edges is where they kind of struggle a little bit. And Trey Wasserman, in that outside zone heavy scheme that Texas runs, he took advantage of that vulnerable A&M defense with 20 carries for 162 yards with 107 yards after contact, over 8 yards per carry, over 5 yards after contact per carry. Texas has not had much of a run game all year, but they were able to find it in this game due to the offensive line playing pretty well against A&M, and then Trey Wasserman and even Arch Manning as well. Some major carries for Texas in this game too. And really, Arch Manning was okay overall as a passer. It was him as a runner, and Trey Wasserman, I thought, as a runner that led to Texas having offensive success against A&M.
Absolutely agree. And I think I want to credit Steve Sarkisian, especially in the second half of this game. I thought the play calling was outstanding. Again, the motions and the way that he found that Texas A&M was overreacting to them and then controlling them on the perimeter, I thought, in both the run and pass passing games. I thought it was one of the best games Sarkisian called all year once he found that rhythm in the second half.
Definitely. All right, so before we move on, probably should talk about it right now. We will talk about it later on when we get to my college football playoff bracket. 9-3 Texas with massive wins this year over A&M, over Oklahoma, over Vanderbilt. They played the closest anyone's played all year to Ohio State as well. Should they be in the playoff?
I don't believe so. I think there is a chance they're the first or second team out. We were talking yesterday about should they move ahead of Vanderbilt. I think there's a very credible case for that. I think they will move ahead of Utah based on this win in their resume. But I think I would still have Miami ahead of them. And, of course, Alabama's going to stay ahead of them for now. And if they win the SEC championship, then the at-large bids, honestly, when you look at it, if Alabama wins the SEC title, the at-large bids are kind of locked out at this point. Right?
I think even if Bama loses, they should get in.
Then you're pretty much,
I think it's done.
You're pretty much shot at that point. Yeah, unless they decide to change their mind on this Miami Notre Dame argument, right? And I think the one thing that all of those teams are also certainly not hoping for is BYU sitting there at number 11.
Yep.
They mess around and win the conference. I'm not taking Texas Tech out of the top 10 to 12 either. So I think at this point Texas will not make the playoff. I think the first two teams out, based on what we've seen so far in the rankings, are probably going to be, if BYU loses, we'll see where that gets into that 11, 12, 13 mix. But the first two at-large teams most likely out at the end of the day are probably going to be Miami and Texas, and I would have Miami ahead of Texas.
Yeah. I'll probably put Texas. So we'll get to my bracket later on in the show. I would say right now I would put Texas in over Notre Dame. I would. I think 9-3 Texas with that resume is more impressive than 10-2 Notre Dame.
I've said it the whole time. I won't sit here and say I have a massive issue. Like, Notre Dame is probably one of the 12 best teams in the country.
Yes.
Right? We know this.
Yeah.
The problem is that criteria versus the resume and the wins, when their best win is still USC, right? Yeah. And they beat Pitt. Miami beat Pitt by more, and Miami beat them head-to-head. And now A&M's lost. So, how does that change the dynamic
and Texas
of that?
Beat A&M.
But the entire time, the mistake made was putting Notre Dame at number 10 in the initial rankings when they had no reason to be there. Really, when you looked at those initial rankings, you could have easily said Notre Dame should have been 15 or 16. I think that part is on the committee for putting them that high so early and putting the precedent out there that in week 8? Was it week 8 or 9 that, hey, if this team wins out, we're putting them in?
Yeah.
I don't think that was the right way to do it, because then once they run the table, you have no way to backtrack it and go, oh, wait a minute, Miami's right here. And then they talked about, well, if they're in the same tier of teams, then we start thinking about it. Well, now they're in the same tier of teams, and now we're not thinking about it. Miami's still number 12. So I think that process with Notre Dame, and it's nothing against the Fighting Irish. They're really good. They're really darn good. They could, at their highest level, they could beat anybody in the country. And that's going to be their main argument is, hey, we're really darn good. We're one of the best teams. But placing them at number 10 in the initial rankings, to me, it's just the same domino, just going down over and over.
Yeah, I would.
That was the mistake.
Yeah, I would not put Notre Dame in the playoff right now. I also would not put Texas in the playoff either. For anyone in the chat saying I'm saying Texas should get in, I don't think Texas should get in right now. Now, I would also put BYU in the playoff. I don't think the committee will do that. So the problem with that is I think Texas deserves to be in more than Notre Dame right now, but I do think BYU at 11-1 should right now at least. We'll see if they lose to Texas Tech again, but right now I think they should be in the playoff as well. So that's how I personally would go about it. Texas I don't think should be in the playoff at 9-3, but I do think there's more of a case for Texas than there is for a 10-2 Notre Dame right now. Depending on, listen, if you don't like resume, if you just want to say, oh, what I think the 12 best teams are, which I get is what the committee is trying to do out there, then sure, I can hear an argument for Notre Dame. But I personally think the only way to determine who the 12 best teams are the teams that are most deserving of getting into the playoff. And I don't think Notre Dame, with their resume right now, deserves to get in over Texas in their resume right now.
And to your point about BYU, because we're not getting into really a lot of Big 12, because Arizona State's loss on Friday kind of took us out of the Big 12 is set with BYU and Texas. But to your point with BYU, now the out-of-conference isn't very impressive. They played a soft out-of-conference. But win at Arizona, that's a ranked team. They could be top 20 this week. Utah, okay, you beat number 13 in the country right now. Lost to Texas Tech, they're a top 5 team in the nation. Win by 14 at Iowa State. Cincinnati, they came here and beat Cincinnati by 12 when they were ranked at the time. They've been ranked a couple of times this year. TCU, dominant win over them. They've been ranked at certain points this year. So I think when you look at BYU, it just seems to be the disrespect of the Big 12. We've already seen this with the ACC, but there's a lot of quality wins there, and they're only losses to a top 5 team in the country. You want to talk about quality losses? What better is there? I mean, when they get into that argument, I know they got blown out, but there's plenty of other wins there to support BYU being higher than they are.
Yeah, we'll get to that later on in the show because I want to talk about BYU more when we get to the playoff bracket. But yeah, big win for Texas over Texas A&M, and at least creating conversation now for the Longhorns to potentially get in the playoff again. Neither Dalton and I think they should get in, and I don't think they will get in at the end of the day, but there's at least a conversation now for the Longhorns with a 9-3 record overall. All right.